Hi, so I, 46M, have a 22-year-old daughter who hasn't spoken to me for 5 years but recently got back in touch with me because she needed my help. My daughter, whom I will refer to as Lily, is my one and only child, and we had a great relationship up until 5 years ago. I was previously married to my ex-wife. I will refer to her as Sarah, 45F. Sarah and I met in college and started dating in our second year. Shortly after we graduated, we got married, and then we had Lily. But that marriage did not last for long because we were just way too different and we realized that we had rushed into things, so we decided to get a divorce when Lily was 2 years old. We had been fighting a lot, and we believed that it would be better for us to separate, for our daughter's sake. Since it was not healthy for her to grow up in such a toxic environment. So we went our separate ways, but we still shared custody of Lily, so we were on good terms. The divorce was a mutual thing and my wife and I were pretty much on equal footing financially, so there was no alimony or child support involved. Everything was amicable, and even though we were not friends, we were alright. Lily spent half the month at her mother's place and half at mine, and it was a convenient arrangement for both of us. I did not get married a second time, but around 6 years ago, Sarah got married to her boyfriend of 2 years. Her husband, Liam, had also been married before and had 2 kids. He had a daughter around Lily's age and a younger son, 2 years younger than his daughter. I was invited to the wedding and everything was quite warm and pleasant. Her husband seemed like a nice man and his kids were shy but polite. It all looked fine on the surface, but I realized that Lily did not seem happy at the wedding at all, and when I asked her about it, she told me that she didn't like the idea of sharing her house with those kids. And then she went on to complain about how annoying both of them were and how she wished her mother hadn't married this man. He didn't have a problem with Liam, just to be clear, but just his kids. Lily always had a problem with sharing, but the way she was speaking at the wedding made me feel like she was being a bit entitled, and I told her so. I tried to be polite and sugarcoat it for her. But I had to tell her that she was coming off a tad bit entitled, and instead of making a face at her mother's wedding, she should be out there, being social and happy for her mother. She did not take that kindly and got mad at me, so she didn't speak to me for the rest of the day. That was the first time that I realized how much she didn't like the other kids. I happened to discuss it with Sarah later on, and she told me that she had noticed a couple of times that whenever Liam would come over with his kids, Lily would never put in an effort to socialize with them, or even speak to them. She would just lock herself in her room and then stay there until everybody left. This was only the case when Liam came over with his kids, but when it was just him, she didn't seem to mind it. She found it a bit concerning because now, whenever Liam's kids were not with their mother, they would be living with her and Lily had to get along with them. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for them to live as a family. We decided that we were going to speak to Lily, but it didn't help because she just got mad at both of us and accused us of only caring about how our family appeared to the other kids, and not about her feelings. So we tried to get her into therapy because as far as we knew, Liam's kids hadn't even said anything to her, but she already seemed to hate them for absolutely no reason. And to be honest, Lily had always had behavioral issues, but it never happened to be this aggressive. We had had a few complaints about her during school that she was being rude to others, to the point of making them cry with the way she would speak to them when she didn't like somebody. She wasn't a bully, she would only just interact badly with people who tried to speak to her and she didn't like them. We had tried counseling back then as well for a while, and the complaints stopped, but with Liam and his kids we were afraid that she would resume that behavior and he didn't want that to happen because of course nobody would want their kids to get bullied for no reason. So we tried to send her to therapy, but this time she was much more resistant than before because she was almost an adult and she kept telling us that she did not want to go because she knew there was nothing wrong with her. Sarah and I did our best but we couldn't make her go, and after a while, we just gave up. More than being worried about how she would behave with Liam's kids and how this would affect Sarah's marriage, I was worried about Lily and her behavior in the future because if it didn't improve, then it could badly impact career opportunities and stuff like that. So I kept asking Sarah how Lily was behaving at home whenever Liam's kids would come around, and she always told me the same thing, that she would ignore them, and be pretty nasty to them whenever they would try to talk to her, so they mostly avoided her and the younger son seemed to be scared of her. Liam hadn't said anything about it, but she could tell that he did not approve of this behavior at all. About a year passed, and Lily went away to college, and so did her stepsister. They went to different colleges so they didn't have to interact much and they would only come back for the holidays. And Lily would spend half the holidays with her mother and the other half with me. We tried our best to keep Lily's behavior in check, but one day, she came over to my house in the middle of the night and it was actually Sarah's turn to have her. So I was pretty surprised when she showed up and asked her what was going on, to which she told me that she had decided to leave her mother's house permanently because she couldn't stand Liam's kids anymore. She complained to me that his daughter was always in her room, reading, and she was convinced that apparently, this was all an act to show her how intellectual she was, and she couldn't stand it anymore. She was also pissed off about the fact that apparently his daughter had been bragging about her higher GPA, and had been telling her father about it at the dinner table, in an obvious attempt to rub it in her face. And also that his younger son was always being annoying and always seemed to be playing video games with his friends, which meant that there were always 2 or more young teen boys in their house and she felt like she had no privacy anymore. These were serious accusations and I told her that she could sit in the living room while I sorted this out with her mother. But she got mad at me the second I said that I was going to talk to her mother about this and asked me if I didn't trust her. So we got into a bit of a fight over that, but eventually, she agreed to let me talk to Sarah and sort this out. So I called Sarah, who didn't even know that Lily had snuck out of the house, because she had been very silent about it, and it was pretty late at night, so she didn't even fathom that she would do such a thing. But anyway, once I told her about all the accusations that Lily had made against her, she told me that none of it was true, and that Lily was just making up things to be mad about. Apparently, Liam's daughter had only spoken about her grades, because Liam had asked her about it, and it was, in no way, an attempt at anything. She was just casually mentioning it to her father, like a normal person does, and it had nothing to do with Lily. And about the reading thing, even I had found it a bit hard to believe when Lily accused her of being pretentious just for reading, and Sarah confirmed for me that she had always been that way and even that had nothing to do with Lily. She was just making it all about herself because she wanted a reason to hate her step-siblings, and in reality, there was no reason for her to. Even the younger son, and whatever she had said about him was just partly true. He did invite his friends over a couple of times but they didn't even make any noise and neither did they leave their room, so there was no reason for Lily to feel like she had no privacy in her house anymore. And all of it made sense, honestly, because as far as I had interacted with Liam and his children, it seemed very unlikely that they would be the kind of people that Lily was trying to make them out to be. After I got off the phone, I was quite disappointed because I knew that Lily was lying, and she just wanted to be her step-siblings in a bad light because she hated them for no reason. I felt like Sarah and I had failed as parents because she had grown up to be very entitled and constantly acted like everybody else was beneath her. It was a difficult decision, but I decided that I was going to have to talk to Lily and tell her, once, and for all, that she couldn't just act out and accuse people of things that they weren't even guilty of just because she didn't like them because it was a horrible thing to do and that's not the way we had raised her. So whether she liked it or not, she would have to be civil to her step-siblings at the very least and put up with them for as long as she was living with her mother. When I told her this, she got really pissed off, and started screaming at me and accused me of siding with the others just because I wanted to get rid of her. I honestly don't even know where that came from because I had never behaved in a way that would make her feel that way. I had always tried to make her feel loved and done my best to treat her as a priority, so for her to accuse me of trying to get rid of her, was absolutely crazy. And it was also deeply hurtful because I loved my daughter and I would do anything for her, she knew it. The only thing that I was not willing to do was put up with bad behavior or encourage it because it was also important for me to discipline her and make sure that she was a good human being. That's all that I was trying to do. I tried to explain that to her, but she just kept screaming at me and it just didn't seem like she was willing to listen to me at all. So I waited for her to come down, but she just stormed out of the house without even giving me a chance to explain why I did what I did. I tried to call after her because it was quite late, and I didn't want her to go back home alone since it was also snowing and the roads were slippery, but she didn't respond to me. I tried to chase her down, but she had driven her car and had started driving by the time I left my house. So I was quite disappointed and I had to go back home, but I tried to text her and tell her that I just wanted her to be a better human being, and of course, I wanted her to be around because she was my daughter. But I found that she had already blocked me and that message didn't go through. I tried to call her a little while later, but even then, I got no response. When I called Sarah to ask if she had reached home safely, she told me that she had, but she didn't want to speak to me and had been very upset. So the next day, I decided to pay Sarah a visit so I could speak to Lily, but as soon as she saw me in the living room, she started throwing a fit. She started screaming at the top of her lungs and demanded that I leave her alone, and she didn't want to hear anything, she didn't want an explanation, and she just wanted me to go. She told me that she never wanted anything to do with me again and that I was not her father anymore, since I had shown her that I didn't want her around, and I was only trying to get rid of her all the time. I still tried to talk to her through her screaming, but it was too overwhelming and I had to leave. After that, I tried to talk to her every single day, and I would visit Sarah regularly, but the same thing happened every time. After a week of this, Sarah and I decided that I had better stay away for a while, and if Lily wanted to talk to me then she would probably come to me herself. But until then, I would just have to stay away because it was getting very tiring for everyone. I would come over every day, and then Lily would refuse to talk to me, come out of her room, and start screaming at anybody who tried to explain my side of things to her. So, I decided that I would not try to talk to her until she had calmed down. And I expected her to reach out to me herself within a couple of weeks or maybe months at the most, but she never bothered. I kept in touch with Sarah and kept asking her about Lily, but it was quite disheartening because apparently, Lily had told Sarah that she didn't ever want to hear from me again and that she was done with me. She tried to tell me that things would work themselves out eventually, but years passed, and nothing happened, and I gave up hope of reconciling with Lily. She graduated from college and I expected her to at least inform me or invite me to her graduation ceremony, but she didn't. So I just told Sarah to congratulate her on my behalf, but I never got a response to that either. And then she got her first job a few years ago, but even then, she did not reach out to me. I tried to move on with my life, but this is my daughter that we are talking about, so it was obviously very difficult for me to forget about everything. But I had to also respect her choice, so I did not reach out to her, because I felt that if she wanted to, she would contact me herself. And until then, I would just have to make do with whatever memories I had of her. It was quite difficult, but I had to get through it somehow. And then, about 10 days ago, I finally heard back from Lily. She called me up and I answered, not knowing what to expect, because 5 years had passed, and we hadn't spoken even a word to each other. So I didn't know what she was going to say to me. She started off by telling me that she had bad news and that she had been fired from her job because of insubordination. She went on to complain about her boss, who was apparently an idiot, and that's why she had refused to listen to her. So that got her fired because that was her third strike and the company couldn't tolerate it anymore. Apparently, she had not changed a bit since the last time that we interacted, and that was bad news. Because judging by her personality, she only got worse with time, and I'm pretty sure that's the reason why she got fired. I desperately wanted to say something about it, but I refrained because I thought that she was building up to something. So I let her continue ranting about her boss, who didn't even sound like much of an idiot if I am being very honest. Anyway, once she was done talking about that, she told me that this was not something recent and had apparently happened a few months ago. Since then, she had been looking for a job but with no success because everyone in her industry sort of knew about her temperament and nobody wanted to hire her right now. So she was out of a job and hadn't been able to pay rent for the past few months. She wanted me to help her out by letting her live with me for the next few months until she was back on her feet again. I was really mad about it because 5 years had passed since we had last spoken to each other and she was just calling me out of the blue, even though she knew very well that she and I were not exactly on good terms right now. The least that she could have done was at least apologize to me for the way that she had behaved all those years ago, but that was obviously way too much to expect from my daughter, given her behavior on most days. But I had thought that the most obvious choice for her would be to approach her mother for this kind of thing since they were on good terms. So I asked her about it and she told me that the reason that she wasn't living with her mother right now was because she had already asked about it and Sarah had apparently declined. On hearing that, I was quite shocked because Sarah was the kind of woman who would support her no matter what, and that's what she had been doing so far. Sure, she would get pissed off at Lily occasionally, but she would never let her down when it really came down to it and would always be there to help her out. So it was shocking to me that she was refusing to let Lily stay with her when she was in need of it. But then Lily clarified it for me pretty soon and told me that the reason she couldn't live with them was because their house was already occupied by too many guests since her husband's family had come to live with them for a while and there was no space for her there. So as much as Sarah would have loved to have Lily over, it was just not possible, and that's why she had come to me to ask me for help and referred to me as her last resort. Now up until that point, I was still willing to entertain the idea of letting her live with me even though she hadn't apologized for anything, but once she called me her last resort, I got really mad. Because you don't say things like that when you are asking somebody for their help, especially when that person is somebody you have refused to even speak to for the last 5 years. Just because her ego was too massive to handle the fact that maybe not the entire world thinks that she is perfect as she is. And somebody actually had the guts to say that to her. That's the problem that she had with me, that I was honest with her and I tried to make her a better person. And she misconstrued it on purpose and turned it into something ugly, just because she couldn't accept some pretty valid criticism. At least no, I had expected her to apologize to me and try to make amends for the past, but there was no apology, and on top of that, she actually expected me to help her out and let her live with me after calling me her last resort, making it very obvious that she didn't want to stay with me and would rather have stayed with her mother instead. So out of anger, I told her that she was not welcome in my home and she could look for someplace else to live because I was simply not interested in helping her out here in any way, shape, or form. And she had the audacity to actually be outraged when I told her that I was not going to take her in and she had to look out for herself. She started screaming at me on the phone and told me that I was being a terrible father yet again when she had served me the chance to remedy the past on a silver platter to me. And I told her that I really didn't mind being a bad parent because she was an even worse daughter and she kind of deserved this. Then I hung up the phone before she could start yelling at me again, and I blocked her number because I did not have time to waste on her and I just wanted to get along with my day. But a few hours later, Sarah started calling me, and even when I ignored her for the first few times, she did not stop calling until I picked up the call. I had ignored it the first few times because I knew that she was going to yell at me about Lily. And honestly, I really didn't need that just after I had been yelled at by her for being a terrible father. So I told her that I wasn't interested in talking about it. As soon as I answered the phone, Sarah told me that she was terribly disappointed in me and said that I was being selfish and not thinking about the bigger picture here. I couldn't even understand what the bigger picture was because, to me, it just sounded like they were making up excuses for her terrible behavior. So we got into an argument, and Sarah told me that she was not interested in speaking to me until I apologized to our daughter and decided to take her in. That has not happened yet, and they are going around calling me selfish and heartless and whatnot. It has come to a point where I really have to consider if I actually am being any of those things. I really don't understand what I did wrong here because as far as I am concerned, I reacted like any other person would. Ida for refusing to take my daughter and because she didn't apologize to me? Update 1. Hi, I am back here after almost 3 days of making my post. And I have come to the conclusion that I did nothing wrong. So that's pretty nice for me. I also decided to call Sarah up and tell her that she had to cut it out because she had been telling all our common friends that I was being selfish by not letting Lily stay with me. I could understand that she was upset and that was completely her decision, but she could not go around saying bad things about me when I hadn't even done anything and expect me to be okay with it. That was simply not acceptable to me and I told her so. But then she got mad at me because she thought that it was a pretty jerk move for me to call her after 10 days for this, but I didn't think it was important to call her to talk about our daughter, and apparently I felt that it was more important to make sure that my image among our friends was not ruined because of what I was doing. I told her that it was because she was blatantly lying about me as a person and only telling people stuff that she knew would ruin my image and ignoring all the other things, like what Lily had said and done all those years ago. Then she actually tried to tell me to grow up and stop having such a meltdown about things that happened 6 years ago and that I needed to move on from it because it was just not that significant anymore, and it was pathetic of me to still hold it against my daughter and use it as an excuse not to help her out when she was clearly in trouble. I was shocked that she was the one saying this because back when it had actually happened, she had been on my side, but now she was acting like it was simply no big deal and I should just forget about all of it. I'm not going to get my time back and it's all Lily's own fault, so I think she should face the consequences of her actions because it's a very important lesson to learn, and I can't help her at least until she apologizes to me once. I have been very clear about my terms, and if they can deal with it then I'm good, and if not it's still their loss and not mine, so I have nothing to worry about. The only reason I even called Sarah up was because I wanted her to stop talking crap about me to my friends, and that's it. She was the one who brought up all those things about me and Lily and tried to act like a shrink or something. It's not my fault that didn't work out well for her. But yeah, anyway, that's what happened, and now if she stops talking about me, that's great, and if she doesn't, well, that's on her. I am not going to call her anymore because I have nothing more to say to her or Lily and I don't want to drag this out. Update 2. Hi. So recently I called Sarah up to tell her that she needed to stop talking about me to my friends and trying to ruin my image in front of them, and for a while, she didn't do any of that. But little did I know that she and Lily were just preparing for a much bigger attack on me, and that happened a few hours ago. I started getting a bunch of calls and texts from a lot of my friends, and they were all telling me that I needed to check out social media and go to Lily's account to see what she and Sarah had posted about me. I knew instantly that this could not be something good, and as soon as I checked out their post my heart dropped because they had just said the most horrible things that one can imagine about a person, and the worst part was that most of my family were talking about how they had always known that I was going to fail as a father and had no faith in me. Even a few of my friends agreed with the things that had been said in the post, and it really broke my heart because I thought I was on good terms with these people, but clearly not. I was extremely disappointed that this was the route that Lily and Sarah had chosen to take because it was quite violent and unnecessarily dramatic. I can't lie, that post really broke me, and I ended up crying for a few minutes after I read that post because it was scathing, to say the least, and they really tore into me and called me every single derogatory name you can imagine. My daughter even said that some of her friends did not have fathers at all, and she actually believed that they were much luckier than her because at least their fathers didn't suck. I mean, that's going to hurt, and the objective of that post was to hurt my feelings, so I would say that they succeeded in doing so. But I decided to take the high road and not respond to that post at all because I was not going to dignify any of that. So I simply blocked them and went on with my day, and I also told all my friends that I did not want to hear anything about them anymore because they were free to do whatever they wanted to, and so was I. They are not my family anymore, and I don't want to hear anything that they have to say about me. Update 3. I recently received a text from Sarah, and she told me that Lily had decided that she was going to move away from the city because there were no job opportunities for her anymore and she didn't want to waste any more of her time. She already had bagged a moderately good position in another company and was moving away in a couple of days, so they were throwing her a farewell party and she wanted to invite me to it. It's been almost 3 months since I cut them off, and it's been great so far, so I don't really want to go back to that life. This is why I declined that invitation and blocked my ex-wife's number, because now that I was not speaking to Lily anymore, there was really no reason for me to continue speaking to her. I am honestly much happier without both of them in my life, and I intend on keeping it that way.